Probably looks great, right?
Uh-huh.
Little color there. And what digital look like?
We are rolling.
We're rolling.
Watch of Kings.
Yeah.
Casio.
Casio. Oh, yeah. I've had my share of those over the years. All right. So, Dave, first of all, this is such a pleasure for me to listen to this music, and I'm sure a lot of people that have admired your work over the years, because in so many ways it's a unique experience for the listener to hear you doing this kind of thing, not related to a movie, not related to a band. Was it unique and new? Did you look at it that way going in?
Yeah, it was very unique. In fact, it was unique for me to the point of being absolutely terrifying when I started, because I was so used to having a picture in front of me. And, you know, the hard thing in a situation like that is, where do you start? So kind of played with that for a while until inevitably, inevitably I ran out of time and then had to quit messing around with where to start and just started. Mm-hmm. So it always comes down to that for me anyhow.
Yeah, you're used to the pressure.
I think without a deadline I'd still be working on Pee-wee's Big Adventure trying to get it right.
Talk about how the deadline worked with this. When you were given this opportunity, the honor of doing something like this, was there no deadline at first, or was it something you knew there'd be a point you'd have to finish this, obviously?
Yeah, it was a scheduled concert, so there was a deadline, but it was like a year not a year perhaps, but it was way down the line. Maybe it was a year away, something like that. And so it just didn't occur to me. You know, I'm so used to thinking in 3-month increments in my world that a year away is a world away. It's a universe away. I mean, we're talking about Pluto, you know, the new non-planet, that kind of distance. I just can't, it's not real. And then inevitably, that date suddenly is like right there. And it's like, all right, this is very real. So since this was for a piece commissioned by the American Composers Orchestra for Carnegie Hall, I decided I would fly out to New York and look at Carnegie Hall. I'd never been there. I said, maybe I'll get some thoughts about the piece. And that was the big mistake because I took one look at Carnegie and they had an original manuscript on the walls. You know, and I'm looking at manuscript by Stravinsky and Shostakovich, and it's like, oh my God, this is the playground of the big boys. I don't belong here. So I came back really, really depressed, and it's like, what am I doing here? And that type of thing. It's like, I don't stand up to those kind of guys. And then I kind of dilly-dallied around, and then suddenly I had X number of weeks left, and I'm used to like, ding, go to work, and I did. Mm-hmm. And so, but this time it was so much fun because there was no picture to look at. And I just started improvising, and I started letting the improvisations just take off on their own. And it was a completely new experience for me, because if I had an idea, I could just let that idea go, rather than, boy, this would be fun if I had more than 17 seconds to play this idea before suddenly the scene changes. Or whether I'm letting something develop and, you know, the scene is a minute long, and if it were only 2 minutes long, wow, the things, I could have really had fun with that. So now there was no excuse of scenes weren't changing, and I could just let things run amok. And so I did. I really just let it all run amok, like children out of control. Open the door to the nursery school and just let them go nuts.
Is there a real joy in that, different from anything you've done in recent years? Is there like a visceral thrill?
Yeah. You know, once I got over the intimidation of beginning, it got really fun. I put myself through an exercise of starting a different improvisational composition every day for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I had 14 little mini compositions. It was a really great, fun discipline to do. And then out of those, I started working on them, seeing which ones I still liked. And then it narrowed down to 10, and then 8. And now they're starting to expand from 30 seconds to a minute and a half, and suddenly I've got 3 minutes and 4 minutes, excuse me. And I was just letting these pieces take their own shape. So it's kind of hard to explain, but I really once I got each piece running, I let them take over. and I just kind of started following.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the first part of each movement I was controlling, and then from about a third of the way in to the end, it was taking over on its own. And then it ended up with these 6 movements, which I had no idea what they had to do with each other, but they just kept playing in a certain order. And then finally I said, I get it now. What's happening is a battle between 2 composers that live inside of me, and they don't like each other. And I've kind of always been aware of that when I'm composing. Movie to movie, it's like if I finish a comedy, I want to do something heavy or dark. If I finish something dark and heavy, I want to do something really romantic. Whatever I'm doing, the other guy wants to do something the opposite. So here they're both going at it. And whichever movement I was finishing, if it was somber, the next one had to be the opposite. It's like, all right, your turn now. And the other one does not. One doesn't want to be taken seriously at all, and the other is kind of more brooding and likes it a little more serious. So they kind of battled it out, and I realized that these movements were really the end product of this kind of fight that was going on, and hence the title, Serenada Schizophrana.
And you can hear that at certain points in this. It's great to hear. It's kind of that battle going on.
Yeah, the silly and the not so silly. Wanting to be taken, the one who wants to be taken seriously, and the one that has absolutely no intention of being taken seriously.
Being put up on the Carnegie stage, having your work, we'll get into all that performing, but obviously that's something that people dream of their entire lives. Is that actually having done that and being up there, with these big boys, as you say, and being on now the same par, that must be a thrill for someone who's admired these people, and now they know that you're in lots of ways on the same level.
No, not on the same level. On the same stage, but not on the same level. I still don't consider myself in the league of these people who inspired me when I was young. I mean, I'm just playing in their playground. That's all. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if I could live and die 3 lifetimes and each time come back with all the knowledge that I just died with, I still wouldn't get to where Stravinsky or Shostakovich got by the time they were in their 20s. So there's like a whole other league going on there with my idols, and I don't consider myself worthy of their attention were they around, but I'm happy to be allowed to be playing in their playground just the same. Mm-hmm. But to me, these are gods, and I am mortal, so I feel like I'm being allowed into the realm of the gods as a silly mortal.
Mm-hmm. But having passed through the realm of the gods now, and even if you're just hanging out there, it must be a great feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kick. What can I say? I wouldn't say no. Yeah. It's like, what do you say when you call and you get at 45 minutes and you can do whatever you want, and it's going to be on Carnegie Hall and there's no restrictions at all. It's like, you just don't go, nah. If I were going to plan it out, I would have planned for my debut orchestral or symphonic work to be in a little hall, a little room. And originally it was. That's the funny thing. It was going to be a chamber piece for one of a room they have underneath the main stage of Carnegie. Mm-hmm. I think it's only about 300-400 seats. That is actually what got me into the project in the first place. Then I got bounced upstairs, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? But I suppose it would have made sense, starting smaller, but nothing in my life quite seems to work out that way, Mm-hmm. And what I learned about getting an opportunity to work in film, which similar to this, I really was ill-prepared for and seemed really daunting when I started, was just never say no to a new opportunity. When the door opens, you either just jump through, and the worst that happens is you make a fool out of yourself. And I'm not afraid of making a fool out of myself. So I'm used to that. So when a door opens, I jump. And, worst comes to worst, I come back through the door with my tail between my legs going, sorry, everybody. And that's not so bad, And on the other hand, I have the potential going through that door of finding a new door, like what happened with film. that I really love and that has great opportunity. So when doors open, I jump.
Mm-hmm. And you went through that door, and you had this experience, and I don't think your tail's between your legs. I think the accolades have been there. So what has that been like to have kind of gone through that process?
Well, I feel very much like it was an incredible learning experience. There are things now in hindsight, much like with my first film with Pee Wee, with orchestra, I learned, and I was going, if I do that again, now I'm going to do it this way, I'll do that. But that's part of learning. So I came out of it really feeling much like I did at the end of my first orchestral film score, of like, that was rough, that was really fun, and there's a huge amount of learning curve that I want to embrace and pick up. And so with film, I just started doing lots more. And every time I tried doing another film, I would always try to push myself to try something I hadn't done before, because the opportunities were so vast. And so I look at this the same way. I'd like to do more, and every time I do it, I think I'll have learned a little bit from the previous experience. Mm-hmm. This one got a little bit over-ambitious, perhaps, and a little out of my control in terms of the requirements to actually perform those 6 movements live on a stage. I didn't realize, as I was writing it, how daunting it was going to be for the orchestra to put it all together. And I came out of it going, oh, I get it. Okay, live, you don't get a lot of rehearsal time. Keep things simple and playable. I just did an overture for John Melchari at the Hollywood Bowl, which had its world premiere last week. And already I tried to think, instrumentation-wise, do it so they can do it quickly and simply. They're only going to have 2 rehearsals. Mm-hmm. It's not like my world, where for a single piece of music, I'll have hours and hours to rehearse it. When I went in there with Stephen Sloan, the conductor for the Carnegie concert, it was quick, it was fast, and I was stunned at how quick those orchestras have to go and how little rehearsal time they get. Mm-hmm. And they did a great job. They worked really hard, but the world is bound by real constraints that I'm not used to in terms of 2 rehearsals, 3 rehearsals, and it's live. And I said, man, this is like all this intense work, months of work going into a Broadway show that's going to open and have one night. And that's it. And it's already designed to have one night. It's not like it may or may not last. It's only going to be one night, and then it closes. And you got to put all your energy in that one night, that one preview, the equivalent of a preview. And that's rough. That's like a whole different thing. The energy, it's a tremendous energy goes into this one thing. And the focus and the drive, and it's only going to be heard once. And whoever's not there may never play again, ever. So it's really weird, and it's unusual. And I'm incredibly thankful that I got the opportunity to record it. And so it will get heard more than once.
Was that always the plan? Was it would end up on?
No, that was always the wish, never the plan. Anybody who composes anything, whether it be for film or anything else, I think we all wish that a recording will be made, that something will be out there so others can hear it, not just the audience that was there at that moment. And but I also knew that it was a difficult piece to play, and it was going to be a difficult piece to record, and that was not going to be an easy task. It wasn't something that could be recorded in a jiffy. So I didn't really have high expectations that I would get a recording out of it. And so I was really, really happy that Sony Classical. I was really, really happy that Sony Classical appeared, and this thing worked out with IMAX to incorporate music from Serenada Schizophrana in Deep Sea 3D, and it was just perfect. So IMAX got involved, Sony Classical got involved, and it was one of these amazing kind of lucky combinations of things which allowed it all to happen.
All after the fact.
Yeah.
After the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Having this, it's about to be released, and how do you look at this album release, different from your soundtracks? This is all you. Putting yourself out there now with this new record. Are there nerves involved? Is this a whole different feeling for you now?
Oh yeah, it's much scarier because when I have a soundtrack coming out, it's a souvenir of the movie. It's connected to the movie. If you like the movie, you're very likely to like the soundtrack. If you didn't see the movie, you may or may not like the soundtrack. It may connect, it may not. There may be parts that do, parts that don't. And you don't design a soundtrack album to be a piece of entertainment to be listened to on a record. Sometimes they are, but they're not designed for that. So if there are parts that are hard to listen to, my answer is, well, that was because it went to a movie, and that's what the movie did. It moved. It didn't stay put, and neither did the music. For this, I can't blame it on, on anything but me. And it's very frightening, because, you know, the classical world is, I don't think they're going to look fondly upon me. I was warned even by the conductor when I came in there in terms of press for coming out there and doing the concert in New York, that to expect to have my head handed to me on a platter was what I was told. And I did expect that, and I still do now with this coming out. But I understand that. I mean, here I am coming from Hollywood into this small, difficult, rarefied world where people have committed their lives to trying to make it work, and I'm like cruising in. If I were them, I would hate my guts, you know? It's like, I wouldn't think fondly of it at all. So I don't expect... Can I take 1 second?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm cruising into a world where there's a lot of very talented, hardworking people who have to make do with an enormous amount of restrictions that I don't have to necessarily deal with being a film composer. My job is much harder than they think it is, but not for the reasons they think it is. And I think what a lot of people from the classical world see when they look at film composers and film orchestras is a luxury of time that they don't have to do things a certain way. And I'm sure that I'm seen as a pampered, successful, spoiled brat. And they're not wrong. And if I were them, I wouldn't feel fondly towards me waltzing into this arena. And so I'm fully expecting a reception that's less than, let's just say, welcoming from the classical world. And I feel a lot of empathy because I feel like I would probably feel exactly as I think they probably will. But on the other hand, do I give a shit? No, because I'm not doing what I'm doing to be welcomed by anybody. I do what I do because that's what I do. And I'm not out there to be loved, you know, I'm out there to do what I do. I hope I connect with people. I put a lot into this. I worked really hard on it. And I, like any performer, you know, we're still showmen. We hope to find an audience. But on the other hand, I don't need to be embraced or understood by people in the world that I'm entering. So I would love their love, but I don't expect it. And I'm happy just to have the opportunity to be able to do what I'm doing. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's perceived. But as I said, I'm I'm prepared for flack. But that's been my whole career. It's been my whole life.
I was going to say, you opened the door once before and you let it happen, didn't care, and proved to everybody.
3 times. I've had 3 different careers, and this is my 4th, and I've taken so much flack for so many years. I did musical theater for 8 years. I took an enormous amount of flack because it was so not what musical theater was. And then I was in a rock band in the era of lean, trimmed down, minimalist groups with an 8-piece band with a horn section doing silly music. I took a ton of flack, and when I started as a film composer, even more so. And so I think I evolved over almost 30 years, 32 years now. A lot of flak jacket built in. Every new thing I start, I expect it, and when I get it, it's like I feel the same way one does if one's, you know, running out of the trench in World War I. You know, there's going to be stuff flying by, and you may catch some of it, but that's the job. So that's how I feel every time I step into a new thing. I'm fully prepared to, I feel kind of like I'm stepping out of the trenches and going. And so expecting that when I get hit, I've developed pretty good armor, I think. It doesn't bother me a lot. I've really known very little else in the last 30 years. I would say of that time, 20% of it, I feel like I'm doing something that's kind of being recognized and welcomed, and 80% of that, I feel like I'm catching flack. All right, there's still... I'm catching flack, but there's still people out there that appreciate it and allows me to keep doing it. So I keep doing it and hope that more people will appreciate it.
And you're a smart guy. You're doing it because you want to do it, and you like putting yourself in different situations, obviously.
I think I do thrive on putting myself out there. And I've always felt, I know this is a weird analogy, but I've always felt like a boxer when I start anything. I felt like that with Oingo Boingo going out there. I felt like that starting out as a composer. I felt like that in the Mystic Nights back in the theater days. I always feel like I'm a boxer in these weird worlds, and I like going into the ring. And I know I'm going to take punches, but what kind of boxing match would it be if you didn't? I enjoy the intensity of it and the opportunities of it, and I sometimes maybe even enjoy taking the punches, and I always hope that I'll come out on top. And I'm competitive, and I like coming out on top, but I prepare myself when I'm starting a film, almost like I'm going into training for a fight. I have to toughen up. I have to get all this resolve. I have to find this discipline. And I've always psychologically felt like I've got a fight coming up. And I used to feel that way when I went on tours, and I feel that way when I got a big film starting up. Same thing. It's like I got a fight coming up in my head. Meaning I don't expect that I'm going to be fighting with a director or fighting with an audience, but I'm just psychologically prepared for something that's going to take a lot of endurance and concentration, and I have to go in there psyched and prepared for it. So in that sense, I feel like I'm going into the ring.
But obviously you want to keep getting back in that ring because you've afforded now the opportunities. If you wanted to not go in the ring for a year or say no for a couple of years, you have the ability to do that. You obviously like that experience.
Yeah, I do still thrive on going in the ring.
What keeps you coming back? You're as nonstop probably as ever, if not more so. I think you probably have a million things going on. Talk a little more about that. Why do you keep just diving back in?
Well, there are so many things I still want to do. As much as I've been able to do, there's more that I haven't been able to do. And so that fuels me on. I'm always aware of that part of it. And it's kind of hard to explain because it seems like I've had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of stuff. But when I total that all up, in my mind, it's far less than what I haven't and still want to do and want to accomplish. I still feel after 21 years that I've only just touched at what I can do in film scoring and what I'm capable of, or haven't found what I'm capable of yet. I haven't gotten close to feeling like I've hit the potential of I have nowhere else to go. I have so many places to go. It's actually, the hardest part is figuring out how to, don't try to do it all at once. Where do you want to go next and what do you want to do? I've got this huge agenda of things that I haven't tried that I want to try, things that are still I'm itching to kind of get my hands into. So that fuels me on.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, right? Nice to have that pushing you.
Thankfully, unless maybe you're in my family and growing up, as one of my kids who doesn't get to see me enough, or a mate or a wife that is used to me kind of being, half ghost around the house. But I'm wired that way, so there's not really much I can do about it. I'm not a workaholic like people think. I don't thrive on work, but I love doing nothing. I really do. I really am a lazy bum at heart, but I've got these things that I really want to try, and they're always kind of poking me.
Mm-hmm. Having completed this now and having it about to come out, we talked about this before a little bit, but is there an extra hat now you can kind of in your head you're wearing that you're in that playground and you're one of these guys a little bit? You have this as a composer, as a symphonic composer, as a, what I'm getting at. Is it Are you proud of that now? It's going to be with you now forever, no matter what you do, that you've done this.
Well, proud, yeah, it's hard to say. That's a tough word. You know, everything I finish, I'm both proud and ashamed of. I've never finished a single film score yet that's the one I'm really proud of. Everything has, like, I'm proud of this part of it, but I feel like I didn't accomplish my goals in this part of it. So I'm proud at what I've done and my effort, and the effort makes me keenly aware of how far I have to go at the same time. And when I listen to it, I hear what I did, and there are moments where I'm very proud of it, and then I hear what I couldn't do, and that I can't get out of my head either. But that goes true for every piece of work I've done. So yeah, I'm proud of the effort, and yet I can't brag about it. I don't know if it's really an accomplishment or just an effort or what it is, and I don't even know if I'll know how I feel for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I don't know how I feel about a film score until I listen to it 5 years later, and then I'll either go, thought it was better than that in my mind, or maybe that came out okay, that came out pretty good. And it's hard to tell when it's so close to you. You know, I don't think I'm a good judge of my own work right now. I hope it'll hold up and it won't be an embarrassment for me, but that remains to be seen.
You can't blame it on the director this time.
I can't blame it on the director. But the arena that I'm in, it's like holds lots of promise. I mean, I'm looking forward to small orchestra stuff. I'm looking forward to the possibility of a ballet. So I have a lot of things on the horizon, as always. Mm-hmm. See if I can actually get to it.
Is there a yearning for more of that performance, for the ballet, to present more of these pieces? That brief thrill that you talked about, even though it's quick, is there a yearning for more of that right away?
Oh yeah, I want it. I want to get right back in if I can. It's all just a matter of opportunities and time, and trying to find balance in my year between. For 10 years I was able to work with Oingo Boingo as a band and tour and write songs and perform and produce, and still manage to get a couple of films a year in. And I did them both for 10 years. And so now I think I'm asking myself, would I be more happy? Because in a weird way, that worked well for me, having two completely opposite things to do. And I think maybe doing some, this new potential of non-film music work might help give me some more balance in my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe make me a little less crazy. I don't know. Maybe it'll make me more crazy.
Any chance of ever actually seeing you on stage, conducting or working with the group or performing the things that you do as part of anything in the future? Is that a hope or a plan?
I don't know about conducting. I think I'd be a terrible conductor. I think conducting is an art unto itself, and there are composers who are themselves good conductors and sometimes reasonable conductors. And I think if I conducted, it would be strictly for my own ego, and it would be not for the, it wouldn't be for the good of the piece. Because as a conductor, I think I'm awkward and slow, and I think for the piece of music and the reality of doing something quickly under pressure, having a conductor who's a talented conductor who can move very quickly is pretty essential to me. I would say it is essential. So I think me conducting would be just me about wanting to wave a stick and not wanting to get a job done. Mm-hmm. When I'm in front of an orchestra, all I'm thinking about is getting a job done. So I don't think you'll see me conducting in the near future.
So during these performances, where is Danny Elfman physically, and what are you doing while you're listening?
I'm sunk down in a chair like this, really low, going, oh God, like that. That's what I was doing at Carnegie, and that's what I did last weekend at the Hollywood Bowl for that piece. Mm-hmm. I had to sit there and kind of sink down really low and go, oh man, I have to listen to it all back now. And it's a little intense, but that's where I think you would find me at a performance of my music, would be cringing somewhere in the back.
Yeah. And that night later or the next morning, what kind of thoughts are going through your head, and what kind of family do you need that feedback from your family, from your wife, from people around you? Or
Well, I mean, I can't imagine my wife trashing a piece of orchestral work that I've done. She's pretty supportive, and most of my friends are pretty supportive. But usually the next day I'm feeling a little bruised, like I want to get in there and try to fix parts of it that didn't quite, work or didn't quite come off, and I want to get into the music and immediately start repairing.
Mm-hmm.
Because watching a live performance of orchestral music is a little bit like assembling quickly some kind of craft that you hope will float, and